Production Center in Greensboro, this is News 2, number 1 in the Piedmont.
Good evening. I'm Sybil Robson.
And I'm Bill Kopald. A landmark decision made by the state Supreme Court is being hailed as a major victory for broadcast journalism tonight. It'll allow cameras in the courtroom on an experimental basis. Our nightside reporter, Davita Jones, tells us the trial run will begin next month, and it'll run for 2 years. We'll have a report for you in just a minute. Sybil.
A 28-year-old Lincoln County man is sitting on death row tonight. He's been sentenced to die in the state's gas chamber. John Vincent Beal was found guilty this afternoon in the murder of 17-year-old Jody Abernathy. During the trial, Beal testified that he killed the young woman after leaving a party. He said he propositioned her at his home. She slapped him. He hit her back and killed her, but Beal says he didn't mean to do it. Miss Abernathy's body was found almost a week later in a shallow grave near Beal's home. She'd been beaten, burned, and stuffed in a plastic bag. Bill?
One of the defendants in the FBI's cold court corruption investigation in Columbus County is being sent to jail. Hubert Mears has pleaded guilty to counterfeiting charges. He's been sentenced to 6 years in prison. The prosecution describes Mears as a major dealer in bogus money. Still to be sentenced in the cold court probe is former state representative Ronald Taylor, but tonight he's hospitalized following an auto accident in Pender County. He's charged with driving under the influence and speeding. Highway patrolmen say Taylor's car ran off the road, rolled over several times, and slammed into a tree. He's listed in satisfactory condition. As for cold court, Taylor has pleaded guilty to bribery and conspiracy charges, as well as arson in an unrelated case.
A Davidson County Savings and Loan got some satisfaction, as well as an empty real estate building out of Eddie Swicegood today. Swicegood has filed for bankruptcy. His office was put on the auction block at noon today in order to satisfy some of the hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans he's defaulted on. Davidson Federal Savings and Loan was top bidder with $132,000, but Swicegood had borrowed more than 3 times that amount from the firm. There are 3 other lending institutions still trying to settle up with Swicegood, as well as his accountant. Today's auction, though, was of no help whatsoever to the families to whom Swicegood sold homes under land contracts. Most of those people may lose their homes because Swicegood used their land as collateral for loans on which he defaulted.
Coming up, the nationwide rail strike is brought to an end by an order from the White House.
And there are improving signs in the state's unemployment rate. These stories and much more when News 2 Tonight continues.
You don't have to be a trucker to like trucks. And I'm a truck driving fool. So when the little woman told me about Green Ford's easy transportation plan on Rangers and F-100s, well, I had to come see for myself. Take your pick. This Green Ford Ranger, drive it home for nothing down and only $129.85 a month. This F-100, too. Nothing down and only $129.85 a month. Yes, sirree, I'm a truck driving fool. Green Ford, Greensboro.
The North Carolina School of the Arts presents The Stars of Tomorrow today.
At our school, we train young professionals for careers in the performing arts. Our graduates work in theater, films, and television, including Terry Mann in the Broadway hit Barnum, Tom Hulse in Animal House, Belinda Talbot in The Jeffersons.
I just can't stay in the same house with him any longer.
Then stay here.
Oh, I was hoping you'd say that.
Won't you join us for another fine performance at the school?
The North Carolina School of the Arts.
The Gap Band is coming to the Greensboro Coliseum. Yes, coming to the Greensboro Coliseum Friday, September 24th at 8 p.m. The Gap Band with Zap featuring Roger, the Soul Sonic Force, and Goody. Tickets $9 and $10 on sale at the Greensboro Coliseum and usual area ticket outlets.
A moment ago, we told you about the state Supreme Court landmark decision to allow cameras in the courtrooms. We have more on that now in this report from our nightside reporter, Davita Jones.
November 3rd, 1979. Television cameras record the killings of 5 communist demonstrators, an event you have seen over and over again on News 2. But during the trial of the men accused of the slayings, we were only able to show you the defendants in the hallway as they were on their way to court. We had to rely on artist sketches and descriptions to tell you what went on inside of the courtroom, because North Carolina's courts have never permitted television or print photographers to cover proceedings. The state Supreme Court order changes that. News 2 reporter Dave Wright.
Professionally, we have always argued that you could better tell the story if you could use the actual testimony, the inflections of the voice, the gestures, the toughness of cross-examination. We should be able to do a better job. If we don't, then we fail.
News 2 photographer Ron Fisher.
It'll be able to give us a better sense of what's going on in the courtroom without having to rely on the impression that the courtroom artist gives us.
Like in many of the 33 other states which permit cameras in the courtroom, television and radio stations and newspapers must arrange pooled coverage of trials and negotiate with local court officials in arranging coverage. Presiding judges will have the power to stop coverage at any time. Superior Court Judge Doug Albright.
More likely there might be problems with defendants who want to make political speeches in the midst of the trial or disrupt the trial, or maybe perhaps some attorneys who might want to grandstand a bit, but that won't last long.
Earlier this year, a poll of attorneys by the State Bar Association found that most of them oppose the use of cameras and microphones in trials. Guilford County District Attorney-elect Lamar Dowda.
It's difficult enough to get witnesses up to testifying and overcoming the stage fright, and I think this just adds another disruptive element.
Beginning October 18th, the electronic media goes on trial, a trial which is to last for 2 years. If all goes well, then broadcast journalists will finally be able to use all of the tools of their trade on a permanent basis. In Greensboro, Davita Jones, News 2 Tonight.
A half-dozen Guilford County teenagers are home tonight nursing bumps and bruises. They were hurt when their school bus slid on loose gravel and overturned on a rural road about 11 miles from Greensboro. That was one of 2 such accidents today. The other occurred just south of Lexington. The bus driver lost control of the vehicle. It rolled over into a ditch. 1 student suffered minor injuries. In this case, though, the driver has been charged with reckless driving. Sybil.
In Washington, President Reagan has signed emergency legislation ending that nationwide rail strike. Reagan's signature came just hours after the House followed the Senate's lead and passed the measure today. It orders 26,000 locomotive engineers back to their jobs. In a brief statement to reporters, Reagan thanked Congress for acting so quickly. He said the strike could not be allowed to continue because of its devastating impact on the economy.
Our economy must stay on the track of recovery. If the strike were to continue, it could cost the American economy close to $1 billion a day. Within 10 days, steel plants and additional auto factories would begin to close, and by far the most important consideration for me is jobs. If this strike were prolonged, nearly 1 million Americans would face a threat of unemployment.
The congressional resolution orders the union to agree to a settlement recommended by a special presidential commission. It calls for an almost 29% wage increase over 39 months, and that's going to be retroactive to April of last year. The engineers currently earn an average of $36,000 a year. Bill?
Well, the head of the local engineers union is upset with the president's order. John M. Smith says other unions have the right to walk off the job, and there's no reason why the engineers can't. The tentative agreement reached with the rail industry includes a no-strike clause. Smith says without that right, his people don't have a bargaining tool. However, the rival transportation union supports the clause.
Most of the blame, I personally feel that it is the other union going into an agreement that they know